What's the most physical pain you've ever been? Had a tooth drilled and pulled out piece by piece. One of the roots of the tooth that was being removed was stuck under the root of a healthy tooth. The dentist stopped and told me to go to an emergency surgeon, where I waited in the lobby for an hour and a half for him to finish up with someone else. The numbing from the previous dentist was long gone, and I was stuck waiting with a drilled hole in my mouth and exposed root waiting. I can't even think about that memory too long before I get sick to my stomach. 2018. I was supposed to get a spinal, but apparently after they dosed me with the sedative/amnesiac I decided not to let anyone near my spine, so they just knocked me out instead. Had to have the same surgery on the other side a few months later and did get the spinal, which made for a better post-op, but the flip side was that I woke up during the surgery and the nurse had to lean on my chest to keep me from trying to get up off the table, which I'm sure would have been disastrous. They put me back under in short order, at least from the perspective of my memory. Bad memory. I ended up breaking my tooth in half while eating Chipotle, bout lost my fucking shit, so I made an appointment at a dentist office that was open on the weekends. I went to the dentist office and their confidence comforted me. Oh yeah, we will just fill it in and then that'll be $400. Okay, sweet. Ha, not so sweet. The pain never went away, it would slowly grow. I couldn't eat anything or even drink anything cold. The pain grew to where I couldn't move my jaw and tears would just come out as the shocks of pain would continue. Back to the dentist I went to, and long story short, when they filled in my tooth, they filled it right on top of a fucking nerve, and not only that, but it also caused an infection. The dentist who told me said, "Man, I don't know why they would do that." Then proceeded to tell me that it will be $2,800 to get it fixed. So I said fuck that, left in horrible pain, took the stupid prescription they offered me, had my parents go get it from the pharmacy because I was basically dying in bed, blacking out from the pain. The pain medicine was love. No more pain. Ah, so great. Next day went to a different dentist, they fixed me up, gave me a root canal, and boom bam, all better aside from the minor lockjaw for 2 hours from those bite guard things, lol. All over Chipotle, and I had it tonight for dinner. I had an extra canal they missed. Years later a shadow is seen and they redo the procedure and find the canal by opening it. However, an emergency case was incoming, so it was temp sealed for later when they did the new crown. By the next morning I was in blinding agony on their doorstep. Prescribed me a narcotic and I had to drive 20 miles to their other office for an emergency procedure. Heavy antibiotics and drugs. I felt a bit better, except ever had a sprained jaw? Not the same as nerve pain, but get sucked in a different way. That was the week from hell, to say the least. I had a really bad infected upper middle tooth. And for like 4 days I groaned in pain because I didn't have dental insurance. I finally found a dentist to at least cray my race to see how bad the infection was, and he immediately let me set up a payment plan and put me on antibiotics pills and an antibiotic shot. 2 days later I went in and had the tooth root canaled because it was about gone anyways from decay. Needless to say, I went and bought new toothbrushes, toothpaste, and a water flosser. And brush a lot. Oh my god. I had one above my front teeth when I was 10. I kept telling my mother I was in pain. She thought it was growing pains and insisted I was just being dramatic, and we treated it with Oragel for almost a month. It wasn't until my face started to disfigure from the swelling/infection that she finally brought me to get help. I ended up losing 2 of my front teeth and having to go through extensive surgery to repair the damage it did to the front of my skull. Not a good time. Oh hey, I had one of those on my asshole. Had to get it lanced multiple times, one of which I was awake for, and the numbing didn't work very well due to infection, so I felt an insane amount of pain for about 20 minutes straight while he operated on my asshole, sewed a rubber tube to it for draining, while I lay on the table shaking uncontrollably and sweating bullets. Taking shit sucked. Laughing face. Eventually they decided to just put me under and do the full operation and get it done. Turns out there was a fistula that needed to be dealt with as well. Super fun. Perianal abscess, was the name of the particular issue. I've had about 25 kidney stones in my life. They started at 28 and I'm now 37. Some just cause minor stomach discomfort and pass with a sharp pinch a few days later. Others just start as a dull ache and then proceed to build and build, until it turns into agonizing jolts of pain that get longer and longer. The hospital won't do anything unless the stone is over a certain size, so you end up there just for pain management. I get them so often I just drink tons of water and tough it out. It is not easy. I puked from pain and wished I would pass out. I remember one year I got a stone in the middle of a blizzard. I was in agony and my wife begged me to let her drive me to the hospital. I argued for a while because I didn't want her driving in bad weather, but I knew it was only going to get worse out. As we neared the hospital, someone had plowed snow into the road. Her car got stuck, and I didn't want her in danger getting out. So I got out and pushed us free. Then we headed up the hill before the hospital and her car couldn't make it. I got out again, pushing the car while vomiting. I just didn't have the strength to get her up the hill enough. So she slowly backed down to a lower lot. As we sat there, a shuttle came that transported doctors to the hospital. I asked in the most desperate way if he could give us a ride. He agreed. When I finally got the morphine at the hospital, it was the best I've ever felt in my life. Kidney stones suck. The first time my dad had a kidney stone, my mom drove him to the hospital. I was in the back seat, maybe 10 years old. My dad kept trying to open his door and presumably jump out of the car. My mom kept locking the door back as soon as he would unlock it. He kept saying, "Just let me fall out, it will knock me out so I won't be in pain anymore." My mom was doing like 70 miles per hour, so it would have definitely done more than just knock him out. Had to call my mom and drive me to an ER at 3 a.m. I had been puking from the pain and abdominal contractions. They said it sounded like a kidney stone, but before they gave any pain medication I had to give a urine sample to make sure, also because of all the rampant drug abuse in Seattle. I snapped at them, "I'm 35 and had to call my mom to drive me here at 3 a.m. because it feels like I've been stabbed in the lower back, and then a 300-pound man with soccer cleats decided to tap dance on my groin, and you think I'm going to be able to pee?" I had an 8 mm kidney stone for my entire pregnancy. We couldn't see it because my little pebble was in the way. It caused all sorts of complications, not the least of which was blocking the epidural from being effective. 5 hours of active, deep breath, now push labor, which occurred at 8 centimeters dilated instead of 10. We had to vacuum him out because I couldn't continue and he was too far in the birth canal for a C-section, and I ended up with a third-degree tear from stent to stern. 6 months later I had surgery to blast the stone to pieces. I don't know for sure which one hurt more, but the labor ended in a baby, so I know which one I'd rather do again. Good thing you went to the ER. I have a family member who deals with chronic kidney stones. They can pass as many as 4 a month. For most kidney stones the solution is pain management and just letting them pass, so they have worked out a pain management system with their nephrologist, kidney doctor, to deal with it at home. Because they pass so many kidney stones, they didn't realize there was a problem until they had gone septic. They had a 12 mm stone blocking their urinary tract, and had been for about a week. I had 2 kidney stones. One was 1x 2.5. And the other was 0.5 inches. Laser surgery was not successful, but they sent me home with a called-in prescription for pain meds. Cigna would not approve the prescription, so I spent 4 hours peeing blood and passing pieces of stone the laser had broken off. I was screaming loud enough my son put on his noise-canceling headphones because he said my screams were making his testicles ascend. Got PCNL 2 months later. I'm surprised I had to scroll this far. I had it when I was 13 and I remember just rocking back and forth in my bed sobbing. It was nighttime, so I didn't want to disturb my parents, but it finally got to the point I had to. My mom drove me to the ER and the doctor said, "Oh, it's just a bad stomach ache, here's some antacid." I said no way, took the medicine, and as they pulled the curtain back to let me go, I vomited all over the floor. They did a few more tests and then rushed me into surgery for an emergency appendectomy. Yeah, I spent 5 years trying to get some doctor to take an interest in figuring out why I was dangerously underweight, threw up every time I ate, had almost constant stomach pain, and was losing my hair. According to all the doctors I saw, I was just stressed. One doc told me to try to relax and drink green tea. Finally I found a doctor who could be arsed to do some blood tests, and it turns out I have celiac disease. I have a sneaking suspicion that the fact that I was a woman in my mid-late 20s while all this was going on had something to do with all the half-assed diagnoses I received. I also think it probably wasn't a coincidence that all the doctors I saw before the last one were men over 50. The doc who took me seriously, meanwhile, was a woman in her 30s. Something similar happened to me, but I'm a dude. Got really sick a few years back. Could barely eat at all, lost 30 pounds. Went to a bunch of doctors. One gave me Pediasure, tons of drugs for acid reflux. Endoscopy that didn't really show anything. More drugs. Now they say it's stress, cause they can't figure out what the problem is. Feels like a dismissal just because I had mental health issues in the past. I have very dark hair and it's changing color to very light in spots. I'm only in my 20s. I'm still ill 3 years later. It's horrific. Don't tell doctors if you have mental health problems, and hope they don't find out, I guess. I hear ya. I had 2 months of pain where they told me it was IBS, then it ruptured and I was rushed to surgery. Worst pain was a couple days after surgery. They had a 1-inch diameter tube with little holes all along it inserted in my lower abdomen to suck out the poison inside of me. When the nurse removed it, she put one hand on my chest and, grabbing the tube in her other fist, she ripped it out of me like she was trying to start a stubborn lawnmower. I have never made an involuntary noise like that before and I hope never to again. Came here to say pectus. Just got my bars out a few weeks ago and I am already feeling so much better than the 3 years with them in. The removal surgery was so easy and I only took Advil and ibuprofen for the pain. The pain from the bars being placed was unbelievable and I would never choose to willingly go through that again. I had my nerves frozen and I cannot fathom the experience people without that went through. Also fuck opioid-induced constipation. I was helping my dad to replace the windows at our house when I was in high school. I went to carry a rotten frame to the trash pile. The window glass slid through the frame and hit me in the shin, slicing a piece of my shin bone out. It hurt so bad that I went into shock, fell down, and vomited on myself. It was a 105-degree day in Texas and I managed to burn myself on the asphalt I fell on. My dad didn't realize I'd been hurt for about 10 minutes and had to help me get up and get inside because of blood loss and being in shock. It was the worst. I kept the piece of bone that came off my shin. Edit, I've been informed there's etiquette to getting awards. Thanks for the awards. I didn't expect this post to get any traction at all. I went nearly all the way through transition with my daughter with nothing. It hurt but I would just focus and breathe to get through it. My husband said during a contraction I wouldn't make any sound. With my son they gave me Pitocin to induce and I was yelling out before transition even hit. My husband finally ran to get a nurse for an epidural when I was trying to climb up my bed to get away from the pain. Wasn't even into transition yet, as I said. The easiest part of a Pitocin labor is worse than the hardest part of a normal labor. Toss up. I had my hand covered in 700-degree hot asphalt. It was horrible. Took 4 hours. I'm the ER and 2 painkiller shots to make it through. They basically had to chisel it off in sections because they couldn't tell what was still living tissue and dead tissue. Also had my GF of the time poke me in the eye with her long fingernails. It went straight through the pupil, slicing it exactly in the center. It starting squirting liquid and good out. Went to the hospital 3 days later because my dad said it wasn't that bad. Excruciating. A few years ago I randomly got pain circling my abdomen around my ribs. It had me screaming on the floor in tears while wrapping my arms around my middle. It came on so suddenly and my brother, who was with me, had no idea what was happening. He rang 999 and they sent a paramedic. By the time the paramedic had arrived, maybe 15 to 20 minutes later, it had already started to subside. The paramedic couldn't figure it out, so I ended up going to the hospital. After multiple tests, no one could give me an answer to why I just suddenly had such agonizing pain. To this day it's the worst pain I've ever felt and I don't even know what triggered it. I was in between apartments at the time, so I was back at Ma and Pa's for a bit. My mother worked at a daycare, and she ended up bringing home hand, foot, and mouth disease. We both ended up with severe cases. It started as just a sore throat, which became a crazy delirium-inducing fever, and then came hell. Everything hurt, I could barely move. I was covered in sores, some of which were on the bottoms of my feet, so walking was a painful endeavor. My skin would flake off in these big patches. All my fingernails and toenails died, and weeks later I had to trim the old nails back as I could see the new nails growing in. Sleeping was a 3 to 4 hour a night thing because comfort was impossible. Every little movement would send burning pain through my body. All told, it probably took about 6 weeks for my body to fully reset itself. I've been to jail 3 times. I would go a 4th if the choice was between that and HFM again. I had something similar. Woke up around 4 a.m. with a horrible, searing pain on my right side, like inside my rib cage. Felt like the worst side cramp I ever felt in my life. It hurt so badly that I could hardly actually breathe. BC breathing aggravated the spot. Somehow managed to get myself to the Minute Clinic down the road right when they opened at 7 a.m., spent my time lying in agony in my bed up until then, pretty sure the pain was so bad I cried a bit too. Minute Clinic immediately wanted to send me to the hospital. I was in no condition to drive myself there, so I found my only friend with a car awake at 7:15 in the morning and I spent the day in the hospital. Did a bunch of tests but nothing came back conclusive, so they told me they thought I had pleurisy, which is an inflammation of the lining of the lungs. I still to this day don't really think that's what I had. I still think it must have been something potentially gallbladder related.